There's been a bridge collapse in Pune in Maharashtra. At least 15 to 20 tourists feared trapped, 2 have killed. Pakistan's claim of Rafale debunked by Dassault chief. Rafale maker calls Pak narrative inaccurate. Air India to discontinue flight number 171. Air India's Boeing 787 to undergo detailed inspection. Chopper crashes near Gupt Kashi in Uttarakhand, and all the 7 people on board have been killed. Israel strikes Iran's defense military headquarters and nuclear facility. Prime Minister Narendra Modi lands in Cyprus. He was welcomed by the president there.
Hi there, welcome back to your favorite deep dive show on stories contemporary and consequential for India. This episode I picked 3. 1 domestic, 2 about our neighbors to the east and west, China and Pakistan. First, we will have a look at Pakistan's economy in the backdrop of the just announced budget, which shrunk by 7% and yet increased Army's allocation by 20%. If yet another proof was needed of the Pakistani army scavenging on its own people, this is the one. Second, this week marked China taking its military and economic muscle flexing far and wide literally. For the first time, it sent 2 of its 3 aircraft carriers into the Pacific closer to America's coast, even as it sought to leverage its control over rare earths economy in its trade negotiations. Chinese expansionism is the focus. Third, the Congress called the bluff of its own caste politics when the party's Karnataka government quietly buried the caste survey it had got done but couldn't get out. What's with the caste surveys that political parties want them but do not want to show them? Let's get going. The way Islamabad has conducted itself post-Operation Sindoor standoff last month would make the gullible lot among the Pakistanis think that they actually won, or at least they stood up to India's military might. The celebrations, the decorations, General Asim Munir becoming Field Marshal, hiding behind the orchestrated euphoria, the government even gave a salary hike to all central ministers, including the Speaker and Chairman of the National Assembly and the Senate. Perhaps they knew what was coming. They had to do all this before the bad news came, which did this week.
जनाब स्पीकर, ये बजट एक नहायत अहम और तारीखी मौका पर पेश किया जा रहा है, जब कौम ने हालिया दिनों में गैर मामूली इत्तेहाद, अज़्म और हिम्मत का अमली मुजाहिरा किया। भारतीय जारियत के मुकाबिल हमारी सियासी क़यादत, अफवाज पाकिस्तान और पाकिस्तान के गजूर अवाम ने जिस जवानमर्दी, दानिशमंदी और यकजहती का सबूत दिया, वो तारीख के सुनहरी औरात में हमेशा याद रखा जाएगा.
2 key documents, an economic survey and the annual budget, like it happens in the case of India, were brought out by the Pakistani government. Together, they give an X-ray, an MRI scan of where the Pakistani economy and indeed the nation stands. They tell a very different story from the one that was being sold through those celebrations. The Pakistani feudal elites can confuse and confound with their swagger. The ruling elites is one nation, while the rest of Pakistan is another planet. That Pakistan is broke, that Pakistan is barely hanging onto an economy in distress. It makes one wonder if the elites of Pakistan have created a mirage, a fool's paradise, for if the masses knew the real truth, they would rebel, they would revolt, they would tear apart the façade and take charge. This year has seen Pakistan's agricultural output tank by an average of 14%. In the case of cotton, their principal cash crop, production is down by 30%. You would recall those pictures of wheat flour loot from last year. Wheat production is down by 9%. And this is even before India's Indus Waters Treaty suspension effect kicks in. The economic survey marked down real GDP growth from planned 3.5% to 2.68%. Compare this with India's 6.5%, making us the fastest growing large economy in the world. Even Bangladesh, despite the perpetual state of turmoil since August last year, has grown at 4.2%. Or even Sri Lanka, which returned back to a sprightly 5% after the collapse of 2021-22. Pakistan is stuck in a low growth trap, and there is a reason for that. The policy rate of the Central Bank of Pakistan, a hopping 22% till last year, stands at 11% even now. It is a reflection of fears of inflation, as high policy rates are aimed at controlling liquidity. Not that there is any comparison, but just this week, the RBI, the Reserve Bank of India, slashed India's policy rate to 5.5%. The overseas Pakistanis are holding their nation afloat, sending back home $31 billion in the past year. But for this, even the IMF loan that Pakistan got last month would not have prevented it from going bankrupt. Their public debt stands at 76 lakh crores, which in Indian rupees is about 38 lakh crores or 87 billions in dollars. That is the reason why half this year's budget is going into debt servicing. Yes, literally half their annual budget goes in interest payments. Foreign exchange is at $16 billion, of which 90% is either debt rollover from China, Saudi Arabia and UAE, or comes from commercial loans to keep the account rolling. Which means, hypothetically, if the Chinese, Saudis and the Emiratis take back their loans tonight, Pakistan would have just about 10,000 crores of forex reserves. What a rich family spent on a wedding in India last year. Let's look at the energy production, a marker of the vibrancy in the economy. Overall electricity production declined by 3% in response to consumption also coming down last year, suggesting a larger stagnation. While the Pakistani masses suffer load shedding of hours per day, the deep state reserved 2,000 megawatts for data centers to run the cryptocurrency ecosystem as part of a deal with the Trump family firm World Liberty Financial last month. Now let us look at some budget specifics. The freshly minted Field Marshal has managed a hike of 20% in defense allocation, even as overall size of the Pakistani budget is down 7%. Look at the numbers in the graphics. Last year, Pakistan's annual budget was $67 billion, of which Pak Army got 7.5. This year, while the total budget size is down to 62, Pakistan Army allocation is $9 billion. This even as allocations of all sectors have been slashed. Education, health, water, every area has seen reduced allocation to compensate for the increase for the army. Moratorium has been put on all development schemes. Only the roads sector saw some increase because of a highway the Pakistan Army wants to build in Balochistan to tighten its loosening grip over the restive province. Look at more numbers in Pakistan rupees. Infrastructure down from rupees 66,100 crores to rupees 64,400 crores. Energy sector would get rupees 14,400 crores against rupees 16,900 crores last year. Water, despite industry pressure, down to 10,900 from rupees 13,500 last year. Development expenditure has been decreasing every year since 2023 to meet strict IMF conditions, to the extent that the government has been using the share of provinces to pay debt. Pakistanis need to know what these numbers mean for them. Someone needs to explain them in Urdu perhaps. But even if they don't care, Sanuki, what of us? For all the lip service Pakistan does to Kashmir, the area it controls illegally, POK plus Gilgit-Baltistan saw a squeeze with lower allocations than last year. A deep cut of 16% from rupees 7,500 crores to rupees 6,300 crores. And mind you, these are Pakistani rupees. In Indian rupees, it would be half of about rupees 3,200 crores. Imagine the stupidity of Pakistanis. The Jammu and Kashmir budget for this year stands at Indian rupees 1,06,041 crores, which is roughly 35 times more than what Pakistan is allocating to the Kashmir it controls. Our Kashmiri brothers and sisters, of course, know that behind the call of Azadi is poverty, pauperization, radicalization, and stagnation. So they would never choose. And why should we bother about Pakistan? Just one state of Tamil Nadu has bigger GDP than entire Pakistan. And of course, many more states including Uttar Pradesh and Maharashtra. Also this week, the World Bank came out with latest data on poverty, in which it redefined the definition of poor as someone who subsists on $3 per day. This has made half the population of Pakistan become poor at the stroke of a pen or printer. While with the same yardstick, India still managed to reduce its size of poverty to less than 10%, extreme poverty just about 5%. So for all those who thought Pakistan stood up to India, it did not. India decided to taper off Operation Sindoor after sending the military message we had to by destroying the terror infrastructure. Any war with Pakistan would have a semblance of an equal match only for the first week. After that, General Asim Munir would have no field left to marshal and no tamgas to take. Perhaps that might still be in the realm of the future. And why not? Come to think of it, was the Pahalgam terror attack triggered because the Pak army wanted to evade a squeeze? Munir wanted to become a field marshal and let the people of Pakistan go to dogs or wherever. Moving to our neighbor to the east in the second segment. This week marked a tectonic military shift in world's geopolitical dynamics, as China sent two of its aircraft carriers, the Liaoning and the Shandong, accompanied with a range of frigates and warships and of course submarines far into the Pacific Ocean, much further than the seas close to its coastline. That has been a routine. Japan confirmed that the two carriers in formation operated this far for the first time, and it was little more than peaceful muscle flexing.
また公表するのは初めてであって、空母2隻ですね、遼寧と山東ですかね、が同時期に太平洋上で活動していることを確認、公表したのも、今回が初めてとなると承知をしています。
The Liaoning sailed inside Japan's exclusive economic zone, and a J-15 fighter aircraft taking off from the Shandong chased a Japanese P-3C reconnaissance plane right inside Japanese air defense identification zone. While the Japs issued a démarche to the Chinese ambassador in Tokyo, this might not be the last time the Chinese have done this. It's a first, but not the last. In fact, it's a beginning of an increasingly aggressive China reinforcing its expansionism militarily. Look at the cheekiness of this post from the Communist Party mouthpiece Global Post or Global Times. It's quoting American and Japanese experts to buttress its own actions in the Pacific while calling the exercise routine. Crossing this far and reaching the second island chain further than Japan and close to the US territory of Guam. Till now, the Americans and the Chinese warships or fighter jets would come face to face, but closer to the Chinese territory. This marks the first that a Chinese flotilla skirted an American island. China has recently acquired a blue water navy status, with both the aircraft carriers joining the People's Liberation Army Navy in the last 3 years. Numerically, Beijing has the world's largest navy already, though it lags behind the United States by a wide margin when it comes to aircraft carriers. China's 3 to the USA's 11. That advantage allows Washington to keep a carrier strike group permanently forward deployed to waters closer to Chinese coastline, both the East China Sea and the South China Sea. But that might start changing soon, or might have already. This week marks a first deployment to Western Pacific by China, Eastern Pacific, and hence American West Coast could be the next. China's neighborhood is watching this development with trepidation. From Taiwan to Philippines, from Malaysia to Indonesia, every nation state has a territorial dispute with China and faces Chinese muscle flexing as a routine. In the case of Taiwan, a territory China considers its own and intends to assimilate with the use of force, it has made blockade-level naval deployments at least twice in the last 6 months alone. This military muscle flexing happened in a week when China did even more belligerent posturing on trade and economy. In a decision that sent global stock markets into a spin, China decided to restrict exports of 7 rare earth minerals. These are elements crucial to new age industries like the semiconductors, EV batteries, electronics, smartphones, jet engines, rockets, space stations, effectively all sectors of modern day geostrategic and geoeconomic significance. China accounts for roughly 70% of global raw material production in these elements, 85% of global processing, 90% of rare earth magnet manufacturing, and near total control over heavy rare earth refining. And hence, its decision to restrict exports impacts supply chains around the world. The markets got cold. Like in other industries, the dominance itself was manufactured with decades-long strategic pursuit backed with state subsidies and lax environmental regulations aimed at undercutting global competitors. In a carrot and stick approach, China incrementally relaxed the export control decision in return of trade deals, both with the Europeans and finally with Trump. The lesson for the global community is that even if the Chinese are going after the Americans, it has consequences for everyone. Washington, D.C. needs to realize that this total chaos on global trade regime it has unleashed is benefiting nobody. It has created a free-for-all in which increasingly China has an edge over the United States. Better sense should prevail in the White House sooner. And then, coming back home to our third segment.
It is an unanimous decision in the cabinet that new survey is to be conducted. Irle adukku ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು ಏನು ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೆ new survey is to be conducted. That is the decision taken by the cabinet unanimously. And so far as section class 2 is concerned, the commission is to be consulted. That we are going to consult the commission.
If there was one promise which provided maximum ballast to the Congress campaign during last assembly elections in Karnataka, it was this one: the making public and implementation of a caste survey the party had done while in power in 2015. But 2 years after coming to power, Chief Minister Siddaramaiah announced scrapping of the data and a fresh start this week. While the plank of dividing the society on the basis of caste is not given up, the party has come face to face with hard realities and some dangerous consequences of spinning politics around castes. It's a Pandora's box to say the least. It's a quagmire best approached with reform in mind and not entrenching vested interests. Unfortunately, that's exactly not what the political parties cutting across the political divide are doing. Those who track Karnataka politics closely would know better what dynamics played out between the Vokkaligas and the Lingayats, the two dominant castes in the state, or how the Kurubas and the Adigas came to loggerheads owing to the mathematical gymnastics that were attempted. The report had recommended 51% reservation for OBCs while pegging the OBC population itself in the state at 70%. Both the Vokkaligas and Lingayats rejected it, claiming they were undercounted. The report also recommended inclusion of Kurubas, the caste of Siddaramaiah, to be included in the most backward category. This too was resented by the non-Kuruba backwards. Basically, it was about a community that is already in beneficiary list, like the OBC, resenting the inclusion of others as the share in the pie would get smaller. In neighboring Telangana, the Congress faced a pick-one situation. The survey that the Revanth Reddy government got done late last year showed a decrease in OBC population and an increase in the general category or forward caste numbers. Imagine, this is the same Congress party whose leader Rahul Gandhi has not made a single speech in the last 2 years or more without mentioning caste census, which unfortunately has been accepted by the Modi government only last month as part of the larger national decadal head count that is all set to take place next year. But more on this in a bit. Bihar is the third state in the country that has conducted a caste survey in the recent past and incorporated results into governance. The Nitish government had promised and got survey done when the JDU was part of the opposition Indie bloc. The implementation happened when Nitish had switched sides and was back in the NDA fold. While the decision to increase overall reservation quota to 65% from the judicial cap of 50% to reflect new caste dynamics has been challenged in the courts, the real impact is at the grassroots, with politics showing fracture. There's a jousting between various caste groups, with political rallies in Bihar targeting smaller categories like the Koiris, Kurmis, Tanti and Tatwas or Mallas separately rather than as a large OBC cohort or MBC cohort. This can have dangerous consequences. In neighboring West Bengal, the Mamata government has reorganized the OBC list in the state in a manner that Muslims, as a religious group, now find substantial representation as backward castes. For example, in the year 2011, when Trinamool came to power for the first time, the OBC list in Bengal had 66 castes, of which Muslims were only 11. Now, after the latest tweak, a total of 67 Muslim subcastes have been included. To accommodate the increased numbers, the Mamata government has increased OBC quota in the state jobs to 17% from 7% earlier. Obviously, she wants to take care of her Muslim vote bank through the OBC route, despite the Supreme Court explicitly saying that there cannot be religion-based reservations. That brings me to why the BJP-led NDA government has bitten the bullet. One obvious reason of hard-nosed realpolitik is that, like in the case of freebies, so in the case of castes, when the opposition has made it a race to the bottom, BJP as a political party cannot shut itself out of the electoral game. Second, is that perhaps the BJP realized from the experience of Karnataka, Bihar and Telangana, the three states that have conducted surveys, but with limited success in outcomes, that let the genie be out of the bottle. The mess would become a collective responsibility. The Modi government is in fact contemplating an all-party committee to formulate the contours of the caste survey. Let's not forget that the duplicity of the Congress stood exposed when it dropped its own caste enumeration in 2011, upon realizing that the nation had 46 plus lakhs castes against only 4,000 plus in 1931. Be that as it may, if the head count has to reflect castes, it better do with integrity. If census is a mirror of society, then let's have it warts and all. If Christians want to be associated with castes, then explain how your religion accepts it. If Muslims want caste, then show proof in the Quran or the Hadith. And while the census would help the government update the National Population Register, the Modi government should bite one more bullet. Bring a National Register of Citizens, the NRC, also. The NRC is the next logical step after this round of clean census. Thanks for watching.